Y'all ain't heard nothing like this before. Beat him in the head with this trilogy. Who dropped this for a certain demographic? Turn it up, blast it. This is gonna be a classic. Facts. Not to run it to me.
Good evening, Paisans and Gomadas. Welcome to Gangsters and Cigars. This is episode 8. Everything that goes boom.
Boom.
Got a special guest in the house. He's a retired master sergeant with the Air Force. He was with the EOD, traveled the world in many combat zones. We're going to talk to him about everything, including what's it take, old-fashioned bombs that blew up the mobsters' vehicles, to everything from plane bombs to whatever he wants to talk about. My co-host,
Shirtless Mike, and I'm rocking the new Gangsters and Cigars shirt.
Yes, you are, looking good. As you know, I'm your host, Bobby Bacala. Where are we coming from? Where
Smoke
we at?
Ring 72, located at 925 North Courtney Parkway in Merritt Island. And we got a nice little crowd here. They're kind of over to that side or whatever, but a lot of people hanging out and came out to hang out with us tonight. It's a really good turnout. We were supposed to do this last week, but darn tropical storm, hurricane, whatever you want to call it. And, but we're here today.
To our Florida fans, God bless. God bless any of you all who lost anything or lost your homes. I have a few buddies that lost their homes, and they're in our prayers. Anything we can do to help. Shout out to Lou. Lou is the owner of Smoke Rings. He is our host every night. He's our host for our podcast. He truly is a prince. We appreciate him. Tonight actually is our first Gangsters and Cigar event. And we are featuring Mike.
We're smoking the CAO Consigliare. You got to pronounce it correctly. The G is silent.
It is.
Consigliare. I made that mistake. I'm more Irish, so I can't be making those mistakes. Can't be giving it away. But it's an excellent cigar. It's a nice medium cigar. Some people will say it's a full body. It's just at that level, I think, where you can handle it. Because I know you do more mild to medium
I do.
stuff.
It's good. I used to smoke these in the day. Always been a fan. So before we get kicked off with our special guest, let's do a review of the CAO Consigliare.
Yeah, this cigar right here, it's a nice medium body. Now, for those who may not know, this used to be labeled or named the Sopranos edition back when the Sopranos was on the air still and everything, but they lost the rights to use that name or whatever, so they keep kind of the same design, which you can see here. CAO, the double band, cool looking band. It's a medium body cigar. Let me see what notes I'm getting here. I'm getting some nice sweet notes right now. A little bit of graham cracker. That's kind of what it's reminded me of. A little bit of earth as well. I don't know what you're getting. What are you getting out of it?
Getting a little back end of pepper. Definitely some leathery tones to the cigar. I would absolutely say it's medium to a full body cigar. Good draw. Nice smoke. CAO is a great brand of cigars anyway. I smoke different ones. I used to smoke this one when they first came out. Everybody, when the Sopranos were kicking, everybody wanted to smoke and be like, Sopranos.
Tony Soprano.
So, I had to smoke a Fat Tony. And when they first came out, they were called Sopranos. I had to have it because I had to keep the fucking box. Yep. I didn't even know what the cigar smelled like, smoked like, tasted like.
They had a different set, like with different odd shaped cigars, and it was really cool.
They had the Soldier, they had the Hitman. I can't remember the whole series, but definitely a great cigar.
Absolutely. And the sets back in the day, they couldn't keep those in stock. People were buying them left and right.
Oh yeah, and the matter of fact, the old Soprano boxes are collectibles now.
Yeah,
because you just can't get them. cigar lighters. Man, it was a whole series. T-shirts. They had a whole. It was a great marketing fucking thing. When they first
I have
came
one
out.
of the old hats that says CAO Sopranos edition.
Oh, do you? Very nice. I had one. I don't know what happened to it. So again, episode 8. Thanks to the fans. Thanks to everybody that just comes by and checks us out to see where we're at. Remember, hit those likes. Make sure you leave a comment for us. We absolutely have a nice crowd tonight for our first event. It's exciting. We're trying to launch different things. We're trying to launch the brand. We are looking for some sponsors so we can launch the brand some more. Monday, hopefully, if everything goes all right, my guest, unfortunately, Shirtless Mike, is going to be running around.
I'll be working. I'm going to try to say what's up.
Yeah, you're going to have to poke your head in. I mean, you're my sidekick. My guest is going to be Robert Caldwell. Robert just had a loss with one of their packing areas, and they lost, I think, 800,000 cigars and $425,000. What? Packaging and everything. So if we can do anything to relaunch, rehelp Robert, he's a friend of mine. He's a friend of ours, as we would say in the family. And hopefully he's going to be able to make it on Monday night. That's going to be a good episode as well. So without further ado, I want to introduce our special guest. Chad is a very close friend of mine. We go back a really long time. He's also one of my brothers in our bike club. We may have torn up the town once or twice for a few years together. May have gotten into trouble a few years together. I couldn't have asked for anybody else I'd want to have my 6. So, without further ado, I'm going to ask the retired Sergeant Major, take a seat at the couch, my brother. Chad, nice to have you with us, man. I'm so glad you made it.
Thank you.
So what we're going to talk about tonight, I'll fire some questions at you.
Okay.
But before we do, can you just give our audience a little bit of your background?
Okay, so I joined the military when I was 18. I did 21 years in the military, explosive ordnance disposal the whole time. I retired as a master explosive ordnance disposal tech. From there, I went to work for the Department of Homeland Security as an explosive specialist. Worst job I've ever had in my life. The only job I fucking hate. And then I went and became, thanks to Bobby, became a college professor. And now I own a bail bond company.
So, hold on. Shameless plug. Chad, name of your bail bonds company and where you're located and your phone number.
It's the Better Bail at 1255 Florida Avenue South, Unit F, Rockledge, Florida, 32955. 321-806-4331. Talk to Connor. He's my son.
All right, so all of you on our fan base may need Chad services every once in a while. You couldn't ask to be put in better hands. I know when his phone rings and we're in the middle of a drink and bullshitting, he's up, he's out, and getting those people out. So if you need anything, play back, write down his number, and if you need him, call him. All right, so, Chad. So as you know, the podcast is kind of mob-based. We talk about all kinds of organized crime. What up, Rolo? Fuckers.
I was like, who's the dude?
So if you remember him, that was Dr. Death from a couple of episodes back, and he came in town to say hello and spend some time with us. Anyway, as you know, I'd like to start with asking Chad about bombs, the old way they did the car bombs, when the mobsters used to be their signature, up until how they're doing car bombs now, and if it changed. Chad?
Oh, yeah, it's changed very drastically, of course. But so back in the day, the car bombs we'll go. Remember the movie Casino?
Absolutely.
All right, so Casino, that car bomb, which is a true story, that car actually happened to that dude. He did live because of the plate that was underneath the seat. So basically, what they would do is they'd go up there and they just either just tape it up underneath the car, or use magnets and put it up underneath the car and get underneath there and hook it up to the starter. And that's all it would take. As soon as they turn the switch, it would explode. That's all it took, right? All you need is, you need a detonator, you need a container, you need explosives and some wire, and you got it. You can do it.
That was your basic mobster car bomb.
I mean, that was basically it. That one, no, the one in Casino, sorry, I skipped on that one. That one was a pressure plate, right? So when he got in it, he sat down, he turned the thing. They show it as one of the ones where he turns the thing, but that one was actually a pressure plate. And he sat down. Well, there was a steel plate in that specific Cadillac.
Right.
That when it just kind of pushed him out of the way instead of blowing in bits.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, the mobsters were having steel plates put underneath the driver's seat down the road, correct?
Well, yeah. I mean, if it works, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, eventually they just armored their car up anyway to protect themselves. But it's, there's always a way. There's always a weak spot somewhere.
So fast forward a little bit. What's the technique of choice now?
I don't know that any mobsters are actually blowing things up anymore because, finding with the terrorists after 9/11, the FBI really struck down on explosives, right?
Right.
They actually started putting taggets. They call it taggets in the explosives, which are identification marks, right? And C4 and everything. Right, they started coating the ammonium nitrate with a waxy substance, so you'd have to break it up and do it, basically chemical bath to be able to make it to where it would explode. So all these different kinds of safety precautions. And if the mobsters were blowing each other up, which I think they're smart enough not to do that because it would be, bam, that's the first thing in the news. You know what I mean? And back in the day, killing a mobster wasn't really that big a deal. It was, happened all the time. Today, a car bomb goes off in New York City. It's around the world.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think they kind of stay away from that and go to more, unconventional. I don't know. I haven't really heard of a mobster getting killed at all. Do you know any?
No, not, like you said, we're talking about old school, old days.
Oh, yeah, in the old days. So one of the old mobsters tried to, you ever hear of Harry's Casino in Vegas? Or was it in Vegas?
Harry's was in Vegas?
No, Harry's.
Harry's.
I'm not sure I don't remember if it was in Vegas or Reno. Anyway, there's this big fucking IED in Harry's Casino. It was huge, right? It had like 100 switches and 100 triggers and all this different stuff. It was completely unbeatable. Right? Completely unbeatable. There was nothing, you couldn't cut into it, you couldn't x-ray through it because it was, lead-based. I mean, it was just completely, you couldn't understand how complex this was. And, so it detonated and destroyed the casino, and the owner got insurance money. We come to find out the owner built the fucking bomb.
Nice.
Right. Well, he got caught and lost, a big majority of his life. But yeah.
So you go to training and you learn not to cut the red wire because that's what they say in the movies. You finish your training. Where do you get sent?
Excuse me?
Where did you get sent first?
Okay, so after EOD school, then I went straight to Germany, and which I was 19 years old. So I got there in October. So yeah, I was 19 years old, going to Germany. Right? Bad move.
No, yeah, not been there. Yeah.
But I don't think I was sober for the first, 2 months I was there. And it wasn't my fault. It was the guys, EOD guys. So explosive ordnance disposal has several different meanings, but one of the meanings that usually sticks is everyone's a drunk every other day, or everyone's divorced every other day. Right? Actually, in my case, you can run them together. Everyone's a drunk and everyone's divorced every other day.
Yeah, I think Chad and I have like 10 marriages between us, but that's for another episode. So
yeah.
when do you see your first tour of combat?
So my first tour was Desert Shield, Desert Storm. But I actually did some really cool stuff in Germany before I went to combat. Because when Iraq invaded Kuwait, I was actually in Turkey already. Right? I was doing a range clearance in Turkey. So before even that, I'd gone on let's see. So I was 19. I'd been there. I got there in 89, February of 89. 90 kicked off, and then that kicked off, September of 90. So I'd been there just over a year. Hadn't even been certified, right? Didn't get my certification until after the war for EOD. But there's some really funny stuff that happened. Anyway, I did an airplane crash out there that was terrible. This guy had been there for like 2 weeks, right? He just got on. He's an F-15 pilot, did his training in Mississippi. It was like his third flight, and he flew his F-15 right into the side of a mountain, just boom. And we had to go pick him up.
So he wasn't Tom Cruise?
No, man, he did not make that.
Did not make Tom Cruise?
No. The biggest piece we found of him was a piece of thigh that was like, I'd say 4 or 5 inches square, and it was attached to a tree.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was pretty bad, but I got a lot of those, a lot of airplane crashes. I met one of my fucking wives in there.
That should have been a fucking omen, Chad.
She's like, I was walking out, right, because we have to go in first, because fighter aircraft had a lot of explosives on, right? So we always have to go in first. This was in New Mexico. This guy's head was empty, right? Like literally it scalped him and took his brain out. And the brain was sitting in the helmet on the side. It was probably about 50 feet away. It was an A-10 crash. So it was sitting there and it's windy in New Mexico, right? So that his head's a little kind of like this. I shouldn't laugh now, whatever. So his head's kind of going like this in the wind, right? And I'm walking out and she goes, "Is he really dead?" I'm like, "Yeah, he's about as dead as you can be." And she's like, "Oh my God." I said, "Don't worry about it." I said, "If you put your mind out of it, this looks like he's, a mannequin." She's like, "What?" Because when the crash happened, there was no blood. He didn't really have any blood, right? And if it was pretty much burned away, right? So he was just kind of a dead burn guy. And come to find out, he'd actually saved a whole bunch of. He was flying. He came up too high over a hill, and they were doing artillery. He was doing close air support on the A-10. He came up too hot over a hill, and fucking there was a whole battalion there. And instead of crashing into them, he crashed on the other side of them. So that was pretty bad. So back to, I was in Turkey. I was doing a range clearance in Konya, Turkey, which is a very interesting place. Adana is the city that Incirlik's in, right? Adana, Turkey. So we were out at Incirlik, but we were down in Konya. And then we got the news that Saddam Hussein had just invaded Kuwait. And they called us back immediately. The chief there at the EOD flight there, mind you, I was just the E3. Right, I was nobody. I was just out of school. I'd just been out of school just barely a year. The chief's like, "We're keeping you." Right, there was like 30 of us there doing this range clearance. He's like, "We're going to keep you." Headquarters called back because we had to call our units. And we're like, "Hey, he says he's keeping us. What the fuck?" All our units called back, said, "You're not keeping us." So they shipped us back I went back to Bitburg, Germany. Other guys went back to wherever they were. And then 18 days later, I got shipped to Al's Garage, Saudi Arabia, in the hellhole of the world. It was terrible. It's actually called Al-Kharj, yeah, but we call it Al's Garage. Our fucking tent, our unit tent, our shop, where we actually had, worked, was right on the end of the fucking runway, right? And this was a huge runway. It's called Prince Al Adabi Airport now, I think, but it was huge runway. They would take off 4 F-15s at one time, right? And that's the story I'll get to in a minute. It was pretty good. So our unit was right there. When the air war kicked off, that first night, right? We were working, and it was about midnight. We were in the office, and all of a sudden, it just sounded like all hell lets loose, like afterburners just. And they were just boom, boom, boom. And they launched I think it was 6 wings of F-15s, and we had C-130s that were up. We had ECM C-130s that were going up blocking radar and shit like that. It was just fucking phenomenal, right? It was, and it lasted probably a good 3-4 hours, just them launching, right? Because it's June, and that was a really interesting night. But that was also the first night Scud launch, of course. So the Scud launch happened. Of course, everybody thought, because it had been hyped up so much, everybody thought we were going to die, or it was a chemical attack. So we get into this, we get air raid siren, alarm red, we're under attack. We go in, we jump, everybody's getting their gas mask on, and there was this cute bomb chick girl that was in the tent over from us, right? And she reached in her tent, and you have these shots that you got to take if you get hit with nerve agent, right? So you have a pack of 2 of them, okay, and they're kind of spring activated. So you press it, the needle actually comes out, right, and injects you. It's not one you put like that. You have to, hit it, and it. So this girl was trying to get her gas mask off, and somehow she got injected with that thing. It went straight through her fucking hand, and it was coming out the other side. And it was, and she was flipping the fuck out. So we had to pull that out of her hand and hold that and wrap it up so she could get her king gloves on. It was a mess. That was the first night. And then once the Scud, they launched 10 or 15 of them that night, right? They all just hit nowhere. Patriots got the majority of them, but the other ones, they just hit nowhere. So we really weren't worried about the Scuds anymore. But then once the land war kicked off, so the Air Force's department is, how the EOD works is we're run by the Navy. The program is the Navy's program, right? Okay. We are taught by a Navy school, right? It's an inter-service school, but the Navy runs it. So you have Air Force, Army, Marines, Navy instructors there, right? Everybody gets taught the same thing. Everybody does the same mission. Here, so except you get specialty stuff. Like, for instance, the Navy specializes on underwater, right? The Navy, of course, duh. The Air Force specializes in nukes, right? Okay, and then the Army, they handle their artillery shit and all that other stuff. But the Navy and the Air Force are part of Special Operations Command. The Army is not, right? So the Army can't deploy on anybody else's orders except the Army, right? So, but the Air Force, we can deploy on Army orders, we can deploy on Navy orders or anything because we're part of Special Operations. Once you get tasked, you get tasked. It doesn't matter who's tasking you. Okay, so it's that's how a lot of my tours were with the Army, right? Which you'd be like, well, you were in the Air Force. I'm like, yeah, I was in the Air Force, but matter of fact, this one tour I was to talk about was my first one was with 3rd Special Forces Group. And they pulled me out of Al Garage to go there. So what happened, the land war kicked off. You had all the Army guys go out. We got Kuwait City in no time, right? It was like no time. They already, because they were they said they were pretty much gone. They didn't turn off the water to Kuwait City until 36 hours beforehand because they, still wanted to, it didn't matter, they were animals. Anyway, so everybody started unassing the AO in Kuwait, right? They task us, we're going in with the 3rd Special Forces Group, we're going into the airport, right? As everybody's going out the other end at Baghdad. So we're coming in, the other Air Force guys and the other Army people were going to Iraq. I had buddies that were going to 2 air bases in Iraq and were going their runway so that if something happened, they couldn't recover the runways, right? So we hit Kuwait International Airport and we hit it hard, just like a combat landing in C-130 is an amazing fucking gut-wrenching idea because you come in and you fucking stop, right? It's not like, oh, welcome to your landing. It's like, nope, stop. And you're buckled in, so you thank God you're buckled in, but all the equipment and everything else is just not true. So we're the only ones that had vehicles, right? It was the EOD teams. We go everywhere with vehicles. Our chalks, our part of our kit is a vehicle, right? So we're in Humvees, and we're in Humvees that have a trailer because we got the explosives in the trailers. So we're heading through going through the airport, making sure the runway's clear. All these fucking Army guys got their rucks on, right? And they're just rucking through the airport. They got to walk. All right. So we finally get up, and we're like, fuck this. We cleared the runway. Everybody's good. They're coming off. So we go and grab a couple of the luggage carts that are still sitting on the runway. And we go around and tell all the Army guys, they just throw all the rucks on the fucking luggage carts, and we head to the embassy like that. Right, you got this fucking airport luggage cart on the thing headed towards the embassy. So we don't get all the way to the embassy. They stop us. They tell us that our mission's going to change, and we're headed to this other place. So we stop and drop everything. Convoy. We pick up a convoy of the other special forces group, and we're headed towards the highway. Right, because what had happened is we were coming in. They were going out. Right. There's only one highway into Baghdad from Kuwait City. Right. It goes through a mountain pass. Okay, so that mountain pass, that's where everybody was heading. So we were told to head that way and to block any traffic coming out of there. So we were on an M2. I was on an M2, third vehicle in. The major had a vehicle. And then there was two other vehicles. The 240 was two vehicles behind me. They were in the back, right? So there was a 6-pack Nissan pickup truck, white. They drive them all. They're all over the Saudi Arabia and stuff. They're just little shit pickup trucks, right? Yep. There was like 6 AK-47s sticking out, barrels sticking out. Major just like engaged, and I just racked it up and let them have it. That was what I cheddar cheese the fuck out of that thing, man. It was terrible. There was no body recovery on that, nothing. It was pretty bad.
What was the next, and then I want to talk about Bosnia, because you and I have spoken about that. What was the nastiest explosion you've seen in your career with the most fatalities?
Oh, you mean the IED wise?
Whatever.
I mean, every explosion that has fatalities.
No, absolutely.
Terrible.
I get it.
mean, well, so for instance, that highway, we witnessed, like, so the body count then was 10,000. It's gone down since then. But that highway, there were 10,000 people killed. That's what they said at the time. We wouldn't know that because the Egyptians picked up they were responsible for body recovery. Okay, so when we drove through there, there was burnt bodies, like decapitated bodies. I mean, it was terrible. Like,
what was the gnarliest bomb you ever had to defuse that had your asshole puckering? And I know your asshole puckered all the time, but I'm just saying, which one stands out in your mind as being one of the gnarliest ones you had to deal with?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I can tell you that when you don't really think about it, when you're going into, a lot of times, all right, so the majority of the time you're going to defuse a bomb, you're going to do it remotely, right? You're going to use a robot. You're going to, or you're going to try to get it out somewhere where you can use an explosive tool on it, where you're not actually doing a hand entry.
Right.
So hand entries, I wasn't really keen on doing hand entries. You only do that like if it's, like you're wearing a suicide vest, right? And it's going to cost you your life if I don't defuse this bomb. That's usually about the only time you're going to do that.
Have you done any of those?
No, because normally the suicide bombs,
the headshot,
Hajis, yeah, they just don't make it. So
right, they don't matter. We don't know that.
No, and it's I don't. So my, perspective of human life has completely changed. Where I just don't give a shit.
Oh, absolutely. I'm with you.
They deserve what they got.
Absolutely. I
think it was like my third deployment. I was actually remember that M1A1. They took it off YouTube a long time ago. That they had a picture of an M1A1, and this guy had tried to suicide bomb it. Right, they got stuck.
Oh yeah,
and the EOD guys came out and boot banged it. Right, and the guy was still alive, and he's sitting there trying to press the button, and the guy shot him in the head. Well, he was an EOD guy, EOD sergeant, right? he didn't get in trouble for killing the dude because he was still trying to defuse the bomb. He got in trouble for saying what he said.
Oh, no, I remember that. Well, hey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people, because it's not talked about a lot, Bosnia, which I found our talks about your travels in Bosnia, and to Chad's credits, he's been assigned to presidential details. He just wasn't over in the sandbox. But Bosnia was pretty fucking gnarly, was it not?
Yeah, it was gnarly mostly for the Bosnians. I mean, as far as Americans, they didn't really fuck with us too much because they knew they were going to die. They fucked with us, right? So, EOD is one of the rare career fields in a lot of the military. You got to understand how the military is. Most people in the military are not in a combat career. Okay, it's like 75, no, it's probably more than that, like 80% of the people in the military are in a support position. They're not in an actual combat position, right? So only people in combat positions or in support positions of that direct combat are allowed outside the gates, right? So you go outside the gate, Bosnia, there's just like minefields everywhere, and they don't just give a fuck, right? They blow each other up. Bosnia is more, how can I explain it, like a movie-wise? Because a lot of people don't understand, you know what I mean? It's like...
I know you did tell me when you're in Bosnia, you're finding just a pit full of fucking bodies.
But yeah, that was... no, everybody knows that happens.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, when we spoke about that, is...
Yeah, they so they were doing that whole cleansing, right? So they cleanse a whole village and just run through the whole village and then just put it over, throw some lye on there, out. But that we couldn't do anything about that, right? That's not what we were there for. You understand what I'm saying? That was like, the UN investigations and all that stuff. So when you saw that, you just, really kept on moving to your mission. But yeah, we weren't there in direct combat role and in Bosnia. So, we still carried our firearms and everything like that because it was a war zone and you still could be engaged, which we were a lot. Hillary wasn't when she went there, but that's a different story. But yeah, it was nasty. But so every war is nasty, right? And putting one war in perspective of another one, and the devastation of human deaths, I guess. Right. It's just war sucks. I've been to 3 of them, and they all suck. Unfortunately, civilians die. The United States tries to prevent that, but kids die. Sorry, it happens. You're going to put a kid in a situation where he's going to hurt an American troop or going to do this or going to do that. That child, I'm sorry, is going to die.
Absolutely.
You put him in the situation. It's not like we or, whoever happens to kill that child or whatever happens to that child. You put him in there. So my empathy for that kind of went out the window. Because of what the shit they would do, they would do terrible stuff. They would they'd do stuff like put a suicide bomb on a mentally and emotionally challenged person, right, and send them into a base, through trying to get him through the gate to blow up the thing, knowing very well that he's going to get his head taken off like a sniper that's fucking absolutely right down the road. Absolutely. Right? Or they would just blow up right there and think. So what happened is the suicide bombers were getting smart because it was a dead man switch. They just hold it. Right. Tape their hand together. Letting the military know that they were not going to take that off. Right. So the bombers. So there's bombers and there's bomb makers, right? A bomb maker is not going to be a bomber, right? Correct. They're too smart for that. It's like, why am I going to kill myself? Right? I'm not. I'm a bomb maker. I know how to build these things. I know what they do, right? I'm not an expendable asset. They are, So a bomber and a bomb maker took it. So the bomb makers figured out that these guys were chickening out on their mission, right? So they started putting a fucking kill switch in the actual bomb itself, so they could remotely do it, right? Yeah, it was really kind of shit. But remember that bomb that they did that CIA attack?
Yeah.
Right? So where it killed all 10 of those guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a VVID with a fucking dead man switch. That was pretty bad. That girl didn't do her homework.
No, not at all. So, I know you are well versed and had to be in nukes. And I know we know somebody who allegedly was assigned to a clandestine nuclear base. It's an inside joke. I'm sorry, man. It's between Chad and I. But,
oh, you're talking about Ed. Yeah. Though the better story is that I was stationed there and there's no such thing. It was ridiculous.
You know, because you always hear stories. There's always somebody who's been in, 100 combat zones and, he wrestled every Al Qaeda guy. Well, this is one of those guys who tried to tell Chad, who spent his career in EOD, about some clandestine nuclear facility that was at a base where Chad was assigned. It was just an inside joke. I only brought it up because it's still funny.
He didn't know I was assigned there before he told the story.
No, but he told the story anywly and embarrassed the shit out of himself. But
the background on that is he said there was now, mind you, there's a lot of nuclear shit in New Mexico, but not at White Sands Missile Range, right? He was like, even in Sandia, in White Sands Missile Range, there's no nuclear weapons, no nothing. And I was stationed at Holloman, which was right down the road from White Sands. We're on the same base, right? And we were their explosive ordnance disposal support at the time. So there was no way there were nukes there without us knowing it. Just no way, because that was our job. Matter of fact, I spent most of my career while I was in Europe, if I wasn't deployed, I was back at home.
Right.
Training on nukes.
So, yeah, training on nukes. And let me digress a minute. A lot of our fans don't know you like I do. Some of our brothers are here, though, who all know you. I guess you'd have to know Chad to know that he's fucked up anyway. Because anybody who's not fucked up and says, hey, I want to go play with bombs and fucking nukes. I mean, come on. I'm crazy. Chad will attest to it. But that's just a whole nother level of fucked in the skull. Anyway. Yeah. So, what's your take on a little short, fat Korean friend with his new
Kim Jong-un?
Little new short strikes near our fleet.
Man, okay, so, and I think I talked about this. The United States doesn't have to really to worry about any military in the world.
Yeah, we got into this.
Right?
Yeah.
So, Kim Jong-un, he's a little man trying to flex his muscles, right? He's got a rocket program. He thinks he has a nuclear program. Is he going to use it? There's no way in hell. No. If he gets desperate, he may launch it. Is he going to hit something? Absolutely not.
Hey, so if they haven't been at war since what, 50?
No, they're at war now. They didn't sign a peace treaty. They signed an armistice.
Right, but I mean in actual
combat.
Yeah,
they throw bullets every now and then.
So how did they get all of them fucking medals? Because I want them. You see those.
He told his maid to go make one.
Jesus Christ, I want some of them, man.
It's like, what does that one mean?
Yeah, what is that? It's just, they're very cool. I want to absolutely thank you for taking your time and shedding a little light on everything that goes boom.
Absolutely.
God bless to our men and women in the military. God bless our law enforcement that are out here. I want to thank the crew that came and are going to spend the night with us. We do have swag available. Gangsters and Cigars t-shirts, sunglasses. And if you want shameless plug every week, go ahead and hit us up. And if you want to sponsor the show so we can get a larger based program, that'd be great. I'll give one more shameless plug. I want a shameless plug to my buddy Mike C, who's running around. He's retired law enforcement. He owns Freedom Guns in Rockledge. Chad is sporting his hat, Freedom Guns. Any of your needs in firearms, ammos, or if you want to go in and just break Big Mike's balls, tell him Bobby Bacala sent you. On that note, I'll end it in my famous phrase. You could either be seated at the table or you could be on the menu. God bless. See you chapter 9. See you next Wednesday night, y'all.
Peace out, y'all.
Peace. Guys,